Okay, so on this episode of Let's Know Buffalo, we got my good friend Ryan Stang. Ryan, welcome to the show.
Appreciate you having me, boys.
I gotta just start by saying, so we don't know each other.
This is true.
And the question I need to ask is, who is Ryan Stang? Because I know of your name from, there's a party once a year, and I see flyers all over Western New York. You're like a local celebrity, and I go to the barber shop and I see it, and people are talking about it.
Well, I don't think we have enough time. We'll get part of his story, but maybe not the full thing.
Yeah, well, I appreciate the kind words, right? I must be doing something right out there.
Yeah.
No, and I think that's one thing that I respect about you is your networking and your promotional ability is just, I mean, nobody overtakes you in the area, right? Which is incredible. And that's the great thing about Buffalo, right? Like, are the people, the network, hey, I got a guy for a thing, I got a guy for a thing. And I got to be honest, I got a lot of guys, and I think you got more.
Well, I appreciate that, Kevin.
So,
why
don't you tell us again?
You know, and I wear a lot of hats, right? I believe, you know, from the get-go of what I've done here in Buffalo, you know, I've always tried to do the right thing for others. And that's, I guess, where my story sort of begins is, you know, I grew up Hamburg, New York, you know, South Towns represent, blue collar family, you know, father owns a construction company, mom hairdresser right in our basement. Mm-hmm. So people are flowing in and out every day. So I really got the feel of the entrepreneurship, the self-employed world growing up, just my brother and I.
So even to work for someone else probably never made sense for you.
And you know, I started by working for my father, and even that didn't make sense. So. You know, they say don't work for your family. And my father, I mean, one of the hardest workers I've ever known, you know, that general, still, I mean, pushing 70, still going to work 40, 50 hours a day, even though he could barely walk, needs knee replacements and stuff. So, like, I got to witness that firsthand growing up, that blue collar, like, you need to be at the coffee shop at 7 a.m. and work until 5 p.m. every single day. So, you know, and I was filling dumpsters and painting walls, and I carpal tunnel now to show that, you know, like, so I didn't grow up in the white collar
But
world.
you learned early on what you don't want to do.
Correct.
Dude, I hung drywall straight out of high school for 1 year, and I was just like, fuck this, I'm going to college.
Yeah.
Literally 1 year. I was like, I'm out.
My father and my brother, they made their way with their brains, where I'm making my way shaking hands.
I will say that's one of the most valuable lessons I learned in my life was working a trade for a year, right? Just getting out there. And honestly, like, I look back on it, and when I went to college a year later, I showed up. I was like a straight A student. I had never been that, like, paid attention, because I knew if I screw this up, I'm going back to what I don't want to do.
Well, it's few and far between these days, too. Like, people aren't doing that.
Sure.
And don't you think, too, when in businesses like ours, where our business is built by building relationships and understanding people, having that experience, you look at people differently because you know the struggles they're going through and how hard they're working.
Oh, yeah. Sure. 100%. I was just telling somebody before I got here, it's like, you know, obviously I work in the world of money and wealth, which we'll get into in a second, but it's like, I also grew up in the every time I got my paycheck, you know, which was $600-700 when I was younger, I'd go right to the bar and spend it, and, you know, oh, it was gone, and now I need to do this again the next week in order to go to the bar and do it again. And it's like, I had to figure out the hard way that that's probably not the right way to go about living, right?
You know what's funny is I always tell my wife too, you know, whether it's a trade or a construction industry, but also the restaurant industry. Like, if you haven't worked in the restaurant industry, like, the level of respect you gain for the back of the house and waitresses and bartenders, like, you need at least a year's worth of experience just so you're not that asshole.
And I always, everyone's always like, Stang, you should open a bar. I'm like, no, I'd give it away. So like, I would not be employed. I would not have that bar very long because I could not say no to giving my friends free shit.
A quick funny story. I was newly single in my 20s, I think I was 26 years old, never been to the bars. Like, I was dating a girl through college and lived off campus. I didn't live the full, true college experience. So downtown on the weekend, and I'm not going to name the bar, but this dude rolls in, waving, shaking hands, kissing babies, jumps behind the bar, shaking, slapping up the bartenders. I'm like, who the fuck is this dude? It's like he knew everybody in the place, and it was you. And I'm like, what a surprise. And I'm just like, I'm like, who is this guy?
Sorry to whoever that bar owner is. I'm probably still friends with you to the day, but you probably weren't very happy that night.
But it was just like, and then I met you, and it was like, all right, now this all makes sense.
Yeah, and you know, like that's a big thing about me. A lot of people who don't know me personally, who, you know, maybe like yourself, Joe, has seen me through the grapevine. Often they don't understand my energy level,
Sure.
and they don't understand my personality. So, you know, that stigma of I don't like that guy comes into effect,
Right.
though they potentially don't understand me.
No, I mean, it's very easy. And Buffalo is weird like that. I don't know what it is. It has to, number one, successful people, like, they want to see you make it, but then once you make it, then you get shit on, and it's like, all right.
Right. And then we probably both battle with that.
Yeah.
You know, I know I do.
Oh, I mean, listen, in my 20s, I was driving a Viper, right? And I used to get oh, you're such a douchebag. Like,
You're right.
nice driving daddy's car. And I'm like,
It's a lot of jealousy out there, but you know, when people do understand where I come from, I think that it changes things just a little bit. You know, and my energy level is natural. Like that's I wake up and I get fired up, and I really do enjoy.
well, mine's supplemented by caffeine, and right? So
That's the thing. I take caffeine too, so it's like I don't need it, but I do it.
your poor wife.
But yeah, well, it you know, at the end of the day, you know, I get up and the ADHD is a real thing too. So I'm like, do I know what I'm doing every day? No, but I know that I'm going to bring that energy and I'm going to bring that positivity, and I'm really going to try to make a difference out there.
Sure.
And, you know, it's real. Like I really don't know how to lie or you know, really just paint myself as something that I'm not.
Sure.
You know, I really believe in what I'm doing, and you know, sometimes it's not always the right thing. Like I'm not always, you know, correct, or I'm not always doing it correctly, but at the end of the day, I wear it on my sleeve, and I think most people know that.
Sure.
You know.
Well, and I think that's what makes you genuine, right? You're not trying to change or be something you're not. And honestly, at the end of the day, fuck the rest of the people, right?
Damn right, brother. Damn right.
What are you gonna do?
No, I appreciate it, man. So yeah, I'll tell you, I guess a little bit. Seeing Joe doesn't know me, really. Sure. You know, I may as well start from the beginning. You know, I told you a little bit about where I'm from Hamburg. You know, I didn't know what I wanted to do fresh out of Buff State, and I never really had that, you know, motive of I want to be this or I want to be that. So I was actually I was presented by a good buddy who I was talking to this morning, Jeremy Lindstrom, and he's like, "Do you want to work for Combined Insurance?" And that was, you know, right out, I was probably 25, 26 years old, and what that entailed was literally walking down sidewalks, knocking on doors, selling insurance policies like short-term disability, like $30 a month, $15 a month accident policies, like a little bit of life insurance here and there. And it really opened up my way of interacting and just realizing, I'm like, okay, this is something that, you know, I can do. I can create my own schedule. I can sort of do what I want when I want to do it. And, you know, it was really my starting point with where I am today. But truth be told, you know, when I'm in my 20s, money was never really my big driver for myself, actually. You know, I never, like, if I made money, I didn't need a lot to live on. You know how it is here in Buffalo. Yep. It's like, you don't really need a ton of money to do whatever you want.
And I say that all the time. I mean, you know, I don't know what it is now with inflation, but I used to joke, like, you make $100,000 a year in Buffalo, you're living like a
oh my gosh,
right?
Absolutely.
Like, you got a nice house, you got a nice car, and you're just not worrying. Now, it might be a little more these days with inflation and the price of everything, but
correct.
I mean, it's an easy place.
And that was my mentality. You know, at the time, I just didn't need a lot, right? And you know, of course, you know, I always had parents that helped me out when I needed, and you know, if I had one of those, you know, nights at the bar where I spent a little bit too much, as I mentioned earlier, like my parents, they were, thank God for them. They were there to bail me out.
Actually tell them that's why you needed the money.
I think they got the big picture. Probably still living there at the time, right?
Seriously, how much did you actually spend versus what you were supposed to spend? Because there's plenty of nights where I drank the entire night for $20 and I feel so guilty.
Oh, I'm not disagreeing.
Yeah.
Like I very thankful.
Now being in my 40s, seeing some of those guys, those bartenders still out there.
Still there, baby.
I'm over tipping for,
you have to.
for the delinquencies of my 20s.
Sure. So to carry on to where I was at, I didn't really, my drive was never like, get out there and make cash and, make all this money and whatnot. So, but I did believe in bringing people together. I was always a big, strong believer in connecting, and whether it be my own personal friends or connecting people with the people that I'm meeting downtown or whatever. And I was always really good from high school at throwing parties. I'm talking.
So was your first, okay, so we've all thrown high school parties.
Correct.
But you were literally, I feel like you were were you starting fundraisers in high school?
If fundraisers meant my parents go down the street to dinner, and
all right, we'll call it
the house. Yeah.
All right.
That was,
whether it was for your own pocket or for a charity.
I never did.
But your Christmas party truly started in high school with just your buddy.
It's
right?
my which I'm going on my 22nd annual Christmas party, and I'm 39 years old. So you could put the math together, right? I started it in my parents' basement with my best friends in Hamburg, Frontier, New York, and I even made all the guys wear shirt and ties then in my parents' basement. So that was year one. And that was just me to be like, okay, let's keep my crew, my best friends together. And it just sort of kept going. I went to Club W, then I went to, remember Club W in Delaware?
Mm-hmm.
Club W, then I went over to the waiting room, then I went over to Encore, and, all over the city I've been with this party, and it's really became quite the staple. Sure, if you think about it, people really look forward to it. And this last year I did it at the Statler, which is the cream of the crop event venue in town. But
how many people are you getting to this thing now?
I mean, I get 300-ish a year.
That's
and it's black tie essentially.
Yeah,
people look really good.
I saw the move over to the Statler.
Yeah, that was a big step for me.
All right, this is it's classing it up.
Yeah.
I don't knock the Chippewa, right? But Chippewa is Chippewa.
We're getting a little older,
Yeah, so that's the thing. We're getting a little bit older, and it's like, man, I don't want to go
damn
to Chippewa,
straight.
right?
So
I don't need one.
Yeah, so that's a good
example.
So
classing it up.
Correct. So that's a good example of one of the events that I've done for a long time, and just my belief in bringing people together and connecting. Man, I've gotten people together and who've gotten married and had kids from my events and stuff. So it's kind of,
what's funny is the first time I met my wife was at a charity event. We were together. We had a mutual friend.
I was there.
A group of us go out to Soho afterwards. So we were all hanging out. So the night I met my wife,
correct.
We were hanging.
We were there. Yep.
Yeah.
I remember. I remember that night specifically.
Yeah.
I remember it very vividly. But to sort of continue on to where I was at the time, I accepted a position at Mass Mutual, which is a big life insurance firm in the area, which I'll get into more in depth on the stuff I do for a living later. But what that did was give me the flexibility that a lot of people don't have in the working world of working, these 9 to 5s, where they can't have a hobby of being a professional event planner, right, on the side. So I went to, and this is big because it sort of gave me the credibility to where I'm at today. I went to a volleyball tournament, all banged up one Sunday or something, when I was younger. And I realized this volleyball community here in Buffalo is so strong. And I'm a basketball player, so I never, even though my family's involved in volleyball, I never played. But I realized oh man, there's something here. People love volleyball, so I'm I can do this so much better. And so I'm I'm gonna host a volleyball tournament, and then I'm gonna make it just a giant party simultaneously. So I'm just gonna connect my two worlds. Mm-hmm. And by working at Mass Mutual, it gave me the flexibility. Even though I wasn't making money at Mass like I should have been, because I was devoting so much time to events like this. But I decided at that point, I'm not only am I gonna, do this cool volleyball tournament because I'm a big athlete, love competition, love sports, love parties, everything's an open bar that I always do, but I'm gonna do it for charity. And that got.
I agree with this.
I was late 20s,
okay,
right when I started that, probably 27. Wow. And I started it, and I did it at the Dock at the Bay, my first one. Did it for juvenile diabetes, huge volleyball tournament. And the beauty about volleyball is you could be really good or rec, and you could sort of either put them together, separate the divisions, whatever, but everybody's having a good time.
Right.
And they like to drink and they like to party, and that did it for me. But the first year I did it for Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation, and I made $10,000, and I'm like,
that's amazing.
Damn, I'm like, this is cool, right? Like I feel good, I didn't have a necessary reason why I did it for JDRF, but I'm like, it's a good organization. And then the second year, I'm like, I'm going to do this again, and I'm going to do it a little bit bigger. At that point, there was a girl who I went to high school with who was working for Jim Kelly and the Kelly for Kids Foundation, Karen Stocklosa, at the time, that was her name, before she got married. But she's like, let me see if we can do it for Jim Kelly. And at the time, I'm mega Bills fan, right? And I'm like, all right, do an event for Jim Kelly. And at the time, this is pre-Jim's cancer and stuff like that. Right. It was like, he was still like really intimidating. And for me, I'm like, I never met him.
Still is now.
Still is. Not for me. I mean, I'll call him right now. But, I'll never forget. They had to vet me, really, because they're not just good. They don't let you put Jim's name on anything.
Right.
Like they want to make sure that you're the real deal.
Sure.
I had, Karen vouching for me, and, I went and was face to face with Trisha, who, runs it now to the day. And, they trusted me enough to allow me to use the Kelly for Kids Foundation as the beneficiary in this event. So, I'll never forget meeting Jim there. I'm just like really scared to shake the man's hand. And here I am. I'm not taking a penny for doing any of this, but the second year I did it, I'm pretty sure we made between 15 and 20. And that's
amazing.
It evolved into what was called Buffalo Spikes for Tykes for a while. And we went over to Woodlawn Beach where, this thing blew up into a monster. And it was like the staple summer event for years and years and years. I did it for about 10 years before the pandemic finally took it out. But when it was all said and done, I had this really great relationship with the Kellys and the Kelly for Kids Foundation. And, I think by bringing my friends, my family, and my business network together over this span, I think we raised, upwards of $250,000 to $300,000 for kids with disadvantages and disabilities here in Western New York. So it was always really important for me that the money stayed home, and that, I really enjoyed just, doing it for kids too.
So from early on, you just really like getting people together and having fun.
Correct.
So,
because it should be fun.
What's interesting though, you start off by saying you were doing door-to-door insurance sales.
Yes.
Now, having just met you have an unusually high energy, and you're probably used to getting along with everybody. But when you're going door to door, you probably had the door slammed in your face a few times.
Yeah.
So
sometimes you're curious. They're just like, who's this kid?
That's one of the things I think, fear is what stops people from wanting to start a business or doing something like that. So even someone like you, who look, custom suit, high energy, huge smile.
Yeah.
But did you have any fear going door to door?
At first, yes. At first, when I was starting in insurance, I didn't even like to say the word insurance because I felt like that was like one of those evil words where people hear it and they're just going to try to put a blocker up, until I realized the value, and I remember I went from Combined, which, no offense to Combined, but it's the minor leagues, up to where I am today, which I'll get to, Mass Mutual, which is it's a really good company, but there's a reason why I left, which I'll explain. Up to where I'm at now. And I realized that everybody needs the stuff that I do. So it really complements my hobby of bringing people together and doing what's right for others simply because it's the right thing to do in my professional life. And that's a really good pivot to where I am today, because, what I didn't realize while I was having a blast, raising all this money for kids and throwing these really cool parties, is that I was really building my brand and building my credibility with people in the world of Buffalo that are,
which is huge,
the highest end people that you can be around. I was going to the Kelly for Kids Gala every year and surrounding myself with the right people. And, even though maybe they thought I was some punk kid at the time, I didn't realize that, maybe it was, psychological or whatever, but I was going to have a reason and a way to help them in the future, because at the time I didn't have the confidence to do things with them. I didn't have the confidence to call them and say, hey, maybe we should talk about what you're doing here, but also, timing's everything. And it wasn't the right time, for me to go and approach them. I wasn't in the right place. I wasn't professional enough. Let's consider that. But, the universe works in mysterious ways, right? And at one point, it led me to where I'm at today. And now I'm capable of working with, people of the highest level, billionaires, professional athletes, the most successful people that you could think of. And it's all due to the path that I laid out,
Right.
Subconsciously, really, like not knowing I was doing it. Right. So it's been a really wild road. But everything changed when, I met my wife now, and we had our first daughter, Riley, and that was in 2013. She's 10 now, which is insane to think about. But, all of a sudden, money started to become really important. It's like, wow, not only do I continue to raise money for things that I believe in, but wow, I might want to actually try to be successful myself. Right, yeah. I'll name drop a little bit here because I know he won't mind, but by me doing all the stuff with Jim Kelly, I started becoming friends with a lot of the Bills at the time. And I was working with, I don't know if you guys remember, but the old punter, Colton Schmidt, punted. He's still a really good friend of mine to the day. And, he brought a policy to me when I was at Mass Mutual. And this policy is one I never seen before. I'm like, wait a minute. Like, I compared it to my best policy that we offered at Mass. And I'm like, this crushes it for what Colton wants. And and he knows that, like I was showing him the best that I could do with Mass. And he saw it too. He's like, why would I not do this one when, this is the best you can do for me? I'm like, and I agree with him.
Yeah. Right.
And it's like the light bulb went on. Right. Because for the previous 10 years at Mass Mutual, I was only selling very one-dimensionally. I was selling whole life, which if anybody knows anything about life insurance, it's really, it's the savings money component with the permanent death benefit. Yep. It's great. It's a good product for certain people. And it's good for everybody if you don't have something, right? But I realized at that point in my career, I'm like, I couldn't unsee this new product, which was based off of the index market and had a floor and you couldn't go below. And I'm like, if I want Colton Schmidt as my client, I'm going to need to go outside the walls of Mass Mutual to do it.
Right. And
unfortunately, knowing that product exists and the fact that Mass Mutual doesn't sell it, and there's a reason why they don't sell it, I had to figure out a way to go independent in the life insurance world. And there's no handbook on how to do this. Right. So that's where really my story has come to where I am today.
So you decided to go on your own.
Yes.
And at the time you had a wife and a kid.
Yes. It was a big, big risk.
Yeah.
Because I was losing all my backing. And I knew that no one in Buffalo that does it quite like I wanted to do it. And I'm currently doing it. And that's because, it's a very, how do you put this? But, Buffalo is like, it's sort of in a bubble, right?
Yep.
Like people do what their grandparents did and then their parents, and then
it's hard to break out of that.
It really is. And
actually, a lot of times, right? Like you're going through what you've been taught and how it's always been done. And when you go against the grain, you're raising eyebrows, and it's
correct. Yeah. And in order to pop the bubble, it's like you got to really step outside your comfort zone.
Yeah.
And that's what
it's difficult in Buffalo. It's similar with real estate. So I have a small team, and the reason I joined Keller Williams is because the broker, he's from Rochester, and the teams in other areas are so much further advanced and operate at a different level than any of the teams here in Buffalo yet. So it was always so hard. Like, if I've never seen it done before.
Yeah.
So I don't even know what is that next level. Right. So for you, if no one was doing it here, how did you even know it was possible to
I got really lucky. And I got really lucky. And that's obviously it takes a lot of luck sometimes.
Yeah.
To really get to a higher level. And I was recruited probably not the correct way, but by a third party when I was still at Mass. Mm-hmm. And this guy was sort of chirping in my ear for a while. He's like, you got to be independent. He's like, you got to be able to have every carrier and every product to your disposal. I'm like, but how do you do that, right? So they took me down to Florida and they sort of, introduced me to some people. But me being me, I took it to a whole other level, and I started shaking hands with other people who were independent
outside of here,
outside of Buffalo.
Yes.
And I knew I had to go outside the walls of Buffalo to figure it out. So I met my boy Barry Fadley down. He's out of Virginia, and he was sort of giving me the inside ropes on how to like do it. And the reality is, most of the people who sell life insurance independently in Buffalo also manage money. And that was really important because I strategically decided when I was at Mass Mutual that I did not want to manage money because it's really it's a conflict of interest.
Yeah, that's interesting. I now that you say that, right, not being in the industry, like I'm thinking about it, I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So there's really no one who only sells life insurance independently in Buffalo, probably besides myself right now. But the people who do it, they're also managing your money and putting it into the market. And really, it's like, how do you do both? Of course, having any life insurance is a good thing. But if they're also saying you need to invest it here and here, how do you look at it transparently?
I also think there's something to be said, right? No matter what industry you're in, if you've got a niche, if you're good at, listen, I'm great at installing doors. I'm the door guy, right? Like I will install instead of being a whole contractor where I'm building and doing everything of that. Yeah. Listen, this is my specialty, and just go balls to the wall with it, right?
And that's where I found myself. I'm like, all right, if I'm going to take the concept that I live by, and that's do what's right for others because it's the right thing to do, put yourself last when it comes to making money and all this other stuff. And I had to be independent. I had to have access to everything. And I went outside the walls of Buffalo to do so. I never wanted to be the product guy. I never really wanted to be the smartest guy in the room. I always wanted to be the relationship guy. Yeah. The guy that, I clearly do in every aspect of my life, connecting dots. Yeah. Connecting dots on the highest possible level. So if I partner and team up with the best of the people, of the best in the industry doing what I'm doing, like I'm okay splitting compensation and doing things like that to make sure that my clients have the best possible product, resources, education, things like that. And I could just continue to do what I'm really good at, and that's just bringing them to the table and making them realize, like, okay, this is really important. You need to hear this. Because as I said, Buffalo is a small town. People, they how do you consider Buffalo? I mean, it's very hard to explain because you look outside the walls
constantly behind the times, right? Something happens in New York City or LA, California, right? And we're weeks, months, years behind the content right before it gets here.
Yeah. Years. And that's how it is in my market. Okay. People are doing life insurance across the country on such a high level, but here the town is completely run by people working for the man. Corporations, Mass Mutuals, Guardians, Equitables. Don't get me wrong, these are all really good carriers, but they're selling it all one-dimensionally and potentially not doing what's right for the clients. And unfortunately, because I was at one of these, companies, I saw that after the fact. And I'm like, oh man, all these people, I'm talking about the highest hitters in this city, only know one thing. They've never even seen the other resources, the other products. They've never even gotten educated on it to make the decision that one might be better than the other. So here I am today. I had to go through a lot of smoke to get to where I'm at, because as soon as I decided to really make take the risk and jump into the independent world was January of 2020, when the pandemic went down the next month. I literally got an office downtown on Delaware, and the pandemic goes down the next month. And it was really wild because then I had 2 years where I'm just trying to survive, keep my head above water, and I had a lot of people from my old industry trying to prevent me from getting to where I am today. I won't go into detail on that.
How scared was your wife when this happened?
I mean, and she's a business owner too. So we really had to get creative, and we really had to just keep our head above water, because also during the pandemic, I had child number 2 and child number 3. So here we are today. I have 3 daughters.
So you were busy during the
I was a
pandemic,
bit,
just a different way.
busy, irresponsible, the same old song and dance. Nothing's changed, right? Like, but I mean, the best part about it is I got the best thing that ever happened to me from it, right? Like my daughters are why I do what I do today. And then my wife, we just got married over the summer, so clearly I'm doing things a little bit backwards, right? But
2024, right? Like,
right.
But I will also say that, like, in your 20s, and you probably look back on this now, your 20s, like, should be taking risks, right? So when you don't have the wife, you don't have the kids, you don't have the mortgage and the car payment and the dog, right? Like, go out there and try as many things as you can to see what sticks.
Oh, I got it all.
The older you get and the more responsibilities you have, your tolerance for risk needs to become lower because you got mouths to feed.
Damn right.
But then there's that X factor that when you have a real why, like a child or several, now the shift of like trying things versus I need to make this work because I need to provide for my family.
Yeah.
Like there's no bigger weight on your shoulders than children.
Oh, and that is the truth. And I'm super lucky. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, very, very lucky to be in the spot that I'm in today. And it went, like I said, you go through your ups and downs every day. You guys know as business owners, it's a roller coaster.
Yeah. Just when you think you made it, something at the pandemic.
Yeah, correct.
You lose a family member. The economy changes. Yes. The product you're selling shifts, and it's just like, I just had it figured out.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm just getting into a routine.
Correct.
I just started making money.
It's wild, man. And during the pandemic, I stayed on the gas pedal. My foot just stuck to the ground, and I continued to just have conversations with people that I was meeting across the country on how to get to where I need to be. And so I ended up partnering with some of the biggest names in the world in life insurance. And one of my mentors now out of Rhode Island, he has like 16 billionaire clients, right? Oh. Which to me, that's like, okay, you probably wonder, like, why would a billionaire need life insurance? Well, guess what? They actually do. It's more for the estate side and estate taxes of anything. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, like, everybody has a different reason to why they need it. It's just all about getting educated as to what that reason is.
Right.
And so I find myself here today. I survived, and I finally, I'm at after years and years of trying to get and having this end goal in mind to being independent, I finally feel like I have nothing in front of me. And, that's where I have my firm, Stang Insurance Consulting, that I now have the ability to educate anybody on the niche that I do. And It's life insurance. I can give them the very best product, the very best coverage for their families or their businesses. And that's because I have every carrier, every, product at my disposal.
Which you're so passionate about.
Yeah.
About educating people on what's best for them.
I just seen it done wrong for so long. And, when you actually get a look side by side with some of the things that people have compared to what they could have.
Right.
And I'm not talking about putting more money into this stuff. I'm talking about literally taking a dollar for dollar, appraisal of what they're doing. And if I can give somebody 20, 30% more on their dollar down the road just by making a tweak or a 20, 30% increase in their death benefit to leave for their families for the protection side, like, why would you not do that?
So
yes.
Is that the easy part when you put the two policies in front of somebody? Like, the numbers don't lie, right?
Correct.
I would think that would be like, here's the evidence.
Yeah.
The hard part is getting them to the table to even look at it, right?
Loyalty in Buffalo is huge. So, like, people believe that, they're doing their current agent a disservice if they were to even entertain,
right?
Switching. What they don't realize is the world, you don't know what you don't know, right? Like, these agents, like, I get it. They're protective of their clients, as everybody is. Like, nobody wants a guy like me to be like, hey, like, maybe you weren't doing, this correctly from the get-go, okay? But remember, they were also they grew up in these corporate worlds where they're told one thing and they're just doing it because that's what they're told to do.
Right.
So, nothing against that, right? Everybody's got to start somewhere. But at the end of the day, the almighty dollar is pretty damn important. And if the same dollar amount going into something can drastically change it for the better,
Sure.
or even reduce premiums for people who need that side of it, like it should be entertained. And that's why I'm going into this new world with the review approach. It's like, if I can review your current coverage and really change things for you drastically, because life does change too after a while, I feel like I'm doing a service for people that not a lot of people around here are doing. And at the end of the day, like the way that I live life, it's like, do what's right for others.
Sure.
And
like we talked about before we started airing, like life insurance is one of those things, for whatever reason, people are not educated on it.
Right.
People need it. And
You don't know.
especially, I feel like anyone with children, and if there's a parent who is, the breadwinner, so to speak, and they don't even think about it. What if something happens to you? How is your family going to take care of all this debt that you have? And people, they don't even think about it. So they need someone to educate them on this.
the thing that scares me the most is that people don't, like, they think that they could wait. And you know what? It's not like auto and home where you have to have this. So you technically can wait, right? But knowing what I know, it's like I've seen so many situations where people go through health scares.
Yeah.
And now they're uninsurable,
Right.
or they can't get it, even though they would pay 10 times the amount that anyone else would pay for the same coverage. They can't, because the insurance companies will not take them if there's those red flags.
Yeah.
And I run into it every day. Typically the only people that come to me for life insurance are the people who can't have it.
Right.
I mean, I have to go and be the guy to open the door. That's why marketing doesn't really work with me either. Like, I can't just throw my logo on a billboard and expect people to call. Like, it's all about the relationship at the end of the day.
Yep.
All about it. And that's why it's like somebody's got to do it, right? It's been done here for so long. And I hate to use the word incorrectly, because any life insurance in place on somebody is the right way. But why not make it the best way? And that's where I come into play. And we do it, completely independently. And you're getting the best service at the end of the day when you work with me, because I'm showing you all the options.
Right.
So that's where I stand today, down on Delaware next to the Statler. My assistant Leanne and me, we're trying to help people. We're having some very high-end advanced conversations with some really cool people on an everyday basis, and just doing our thing, and really trying to disrupt a little bit, right?
So speaking of disruptions, I guess moving into I guess we're in 2024 now,
Yeah.
right? What does the future look like for your company and what you're doing?
Well, it's, loaded question, right? Because I wear so many hats and I do so many different things. I do want to continue to be that value add to people and continue down this path that I'm on, and just really educating and opening eyes in my industry. It's not being done enough, because there are really unique policies, unique things out there that you could do with life insurance that nobody's talking about. But I do it in a way that most don't, I would say. If you've ever been to one of my Bill's tailgates, right? You see my big Stang Insurance Consulting tents and things like that. And I put a lot of money and a lot of time into these things, really to bring people together and simply sometimes just create relationships. Yeah. I'm never out there. I truly don't view myself as a salesman.
Right.
I know that at the end of the day, that's what I do.
Well, I think it's the same in our industry, and
Same.
I don't ever want to have to sell a client on a house, right? And I don't ever, even sell myself on that, right? Like, it goes to reputation and relationships, and
We're representatives, right?
Yeah.
We represent. If you want us to represent you, you're going to get the best service possible. That's the way we look at it. It's so parallel.
And that's what I do to a T. I go in and the method behind my if you guys don't know, I throw some really large tailgates at Prohibition parking lot, and I do it on a whole other level. I have a full bar.
Through a few of them.
Yeah, I do it. I have my bartender, who's my assistant. Yeah, I have my DJ, who's one of my best friends from high school, shout out Drop D. We have a great time, but I go in with that ambition, even though I spend, more than most would ever at a tailgate. I do it because I know that at the end of the day or end of the year, I'm going to walk out with some relationships that I would not have unless I did these tailgates.
And it's not, like you said, you don't want to be a salesperson. It's for the opportunity to be able to educate them on something they actually need.
Yes.
That's what's so important about it.
And I'm not talking about this stuff there, obviously.
Right.
But, once you have the relationship, that's half the battle.
Yes.
If not more than half.
On top of it, you're enjoying life, right?
I have a good time.
You're at a Bills game, you're partying, you're throwing parties for charities, right? Like, these are all incredible things.
I have a good time with most of my life, right? Everything that I do, I like to keep it interesting. I'm constantly moving forward, trying not to look back. I have my bad days, right? Where you're in your own head. And, I got my people that I reach out to for stuff like that, and they keep me moving forward. So you ask what 2024 is like. I don't have a lot of set goals. Like, I'm not like, I want to make $1 million.
Right.
I don't think that way. I still don't. Money is still not my driving force. It's still doing what's right for people in the relationship side. I just believe that good things are going to come if you do right by others.
So the money always falls, right?
It happens.
I wholeheartedly believe that.
It's not the most, it's not always the right way to go about it. Don't get me wrong. Some people need structure. Some people have to have it or the wheels are going to fall off the bus. Yeah, I don't think it's a coincidence that your energy level is that way, because when you're getting up with the reason to do the right thing for people, that is so much stronger than I need to make X amount of dollars. I don't think you would come with the same energy if you woke up like that. Right. And like I said, and that also goes into the play too, because like the stuff that I'm doing in work, like, actually, if you were to level it off against my competitors, like, I'm making the least compensation on the stuff that I'm doing, because sometimes it takes the right thing to do, dollars to do the right thing for others.
I've chased the dollar before.
Yeah.
And my experience is it usually never works out, right? Like, I was young, I was chasing money and found myself in industries that I didn't necessarily enjoy.
Right.
And because I didn't enjoy it, I didn't always excel or reach my full potential, and then transition into something else.
It's so similar to, like, with me. Just this morning, I had a client text me about a house. They wanted to see like an $800,000 house. Okay, cool. Then they're like, it's not really for us, but we're actually interested in buying some investment property. Can we sit down and talk about it? And I literally lit up. And I'm going to make way less money on some, low-end investment property, but this is something that's going to help them continue to build wealth, and I'm so excited to educate them on something that they don't know. So it's very similar, again, that like, that's what excites people.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned wealth. I'm listening to this book on tape right now, right? I think it's what's called, it's like Psychology of Money or something, and they said a really interesting fact about wealth. It's like, being wealthy is really the stuff that you can't see, right? Yeah. It's like, you could ride around in these flashy cars and have these big houses and stuff, but in all reality, like, that's actually just a debt.
Right.
Like if you think of it like that, like, we drive nice cars and stuff, but if you look at it, like, that's actually minus $100,000 to that guy. Like, so like, a lot of the wealth is just so hidden, where it's like, it's the stuff that is behind the curtain that you don't see. And for me, wealth is, I want to be able to do what I want to do, who I want to do it with, when and where, right?
So I think it's, maybe as corny as it sounds, wealth, right? There's financial wealth, but I had a conversation with some young entrepreneurs yesterday. They reached out and they moved down to Florida. They still have a branch of their business here, and they just wanted to kind of pick my brain. And I said, I got to be honest, now that I have a kid, the ability in my early 40s to wake up and have coffee and hang out with her for the first 2 hours of my day and pop in and out.
Yep.
And now it's not every day. I mean, there's days where like I'm going till 10 o'clock at night, but I'm there for 90% of bedtimes. And just the ability to like, you can't put a price tag on that for me. Right. So if you told me I had to go work for the man from 9 or 8 to 4:30 or 8 to 5 or 9 to 5, whatever you want to call it, you're going to have to pay me a hell of a lot of, and I don't even think, I don't even know if there's a dollar
Right.
amount, right? Like it would be in the millions so that I could retire when I was like
Once you get
45 years old. Yeah.
Once you get
Right?
the taste of working for yourself, it's really hard to go back. And we met when you were with owning Oogie Games, and like you were grinding.
Yeah.
Every
that's
day.
what I did
could
in my
barely
20s, yeah.
talk to you because you were always constantly moving.
Sure.
It changes when you have a kid, though. It's
Yep.
like, for me, I'm like, I wake up every day. My two daughters, one's 4 and 3 now, right?
Yeah.
And I get to see them before I go to work, and I get to go home after.
And that's the part that I feel bad.
Yeah.
My wife is a director at New Era.
Yeah.
And, she leaves the house at like 6:45. She pulls in the driveway at 5 p.m. She's got 2 hours with my daughter, if she's lucky. And that's feeding and bathing and bedtime,
Yeah.
right? Like we're there, and I get so much more time with my
You really
kid.
don't take it into perspective until you live it.
Yeah.
How grateful it is to be your own boss.
One of the greatest joys that I had recently was I'm at Children's Hospital with my wife in the middle of the day, and I'm looking around, and there's all these, kids there, all with their moms. I was the only dad there.
Yeah.
And just to have the ability to be there for those things, like taking her to the doctor and stuff like that. Like that is something I never thought about, like how grateful I would be for something as simple as going to a doctor's appointment,
Yeah, that's deep right there. I mean, I feel you though. I'm often the only guy picking my daughter up from dance class. It's like,
It's
I don't know
wild.
what I'm doing here,
Just
but
realize that we all have girls. You've got 3 or
yes,
3. Yeah, you've got 1. I got 1.
girl dad
The best.
represent, baby.
The best.
It's different. Would I love one of them to become an athlete someday? Yes, I would. I don't need to be in a theater every day of my whole life. My wife owns a music and theater school too, so it doesn't help my cause. But I'm holding out hope for. I'm trying to get the 10-year-old to golf this summer. We'll see where that goes.
Dude, you know what I heard?
Yeah.
And it's fact. Women's golf are the most unused scholarships.
Yeah. Thank you for giving me that information.
Think about it. So many of them go unused.
Yes.
And I sure shit, I'm not going to be able to teach my daughter how to golf because
no.
I need some help out there.
Some random woman came up to me and Katie in the parking lot once and told us that.
Yeah.
She was like,
Wow.
"You need to get her into golf."
It's insane.
Well, I bought the clubs already, so we're going to see where that goes, But I still got hope for the 3 or 4. Maybe one of them will play basketball, maybe. But until then, it's just like we're just going to keep on figuring it out, right? We figure it out along the way, and it's nice to be able to have that opportunity in life to do that,
Yeah.
So some of that, what do you have coming up as far as charity events go? I know
Yeah.
you're still doing your Christmas party, right?
So this past year was my last Real Men Wear Pink.
Okay.
Which I did that the previous 4 years. I was number 1 in the Buffalo region because it's sort of like a national, local competition.
very cool.
While you're doing it, raising money for American Cancer Society. I was number 1 in Buffalo the last 4 years. I had to wear pink every single day for the whole month of October.
Plenty of those videos. Yeah.
Kind of wild.
Congrats.
Got a little overwhelming though because that was a month-long full-time job. But
it's intense, man.
made a very big difference. I think I raised $220,000 over the 4 years doing that. Last year I finished my best, which was like 6th in the nation doing it. So that was really cool. But I made it a point to say this last year was going to be my last year. So because I want to focus on more local type charity endeavors. I'm on the Greater Buffalo Sports Hall of Fame board. So I run their auction for their annual event, which is pretty time consuming, but it benefits the amateur development sports fund in Western New York. Tomorrow, I sit on the board for Trusted Gives, which is my dear friend Martin Vidal's newest foundation, which directly impacts Buffalo, New York, more specifically the east side here in Buffalo. And we have our first inaugural gala tomorrow over at the Buffalo Club. I think we're going in, already raised $80,000, which is like, awesome. So I'm still going to stay on that, do the right thing for the community, gas pedal, and assume that it's going to come around in some way, shape, or form. I do believe in karma.
Right.
I do want to continue to make a difference for people who need us the most, because, if I have the ability to bring people together and do it for a good cause, I'm going to do it. And clearly, as I mentioned, with the Real Men Wear Pink and Buffalo Spikes for Tykes, and I do a lot with the Evan Wood Fund, Eric Wood's organization, you know, I wear it on my sleeve. So if I commit to something and and I'm on a board or something like that, like I'm going to go to the fullest extent to make it successful. And that's just gives me the ammo and the MO to go and do what I do on a daily basis every day. And that's, change people's lives financially, by implementing my niche. I complement financial advisors and people who work in the property and casualty world who maybe don't focus on life insurance specifically. So I can really be an asset to them because they want what's best for their clients or their customers, whoever they may be. And like by bringing me in, they know that they're getting that. So I'm just going to continue to create strong relationships, roll with guys like you who, I know are similar minded and are heading in on that same trajectory down the road. I'm going to continue to be the family guy that I am, try to be there for my daughters and my wife whenever I can be. I'm going to do a bunch of traveling. I can work anywhere in the country too, which is a beautiful thing. Yeah, like I have a lot of people down in the Sarasota market of Florida, which I really hold, near and dear because I've been going down there since I've been little with my family. And I really want to start making a dent outside of the Western New York area, simultaneously as making the biggest impact here, because I do believe in Buffalo. I do believe we have so much potential to be in such a better place. And guys like us who have the ability to make these differences, I hold strongly that we need to do so.
Sure. I just want to talk about life insurance again. Not to make it...
All right. I don't hear that every day.
Not to make it a life insurance commercial, but I love my wife and kids so much, and I feel so good knowing if something happens to me that all of our debt's paid for and my wife will be okay, for several years if I'm gone. And it's so scary to me how many people don't have any life insurance and they have children. Is there what do you say to somebody like that, or what's something you want to put out there to get people to really think about what they need to be educated on?
Right. Well, you just said it. The education is key. And it's not always, you could say like, how much do I need? What products should I get? Blah, blah, blah. Right. That's all just noise, really. People buy life insurance out of love. Okay. They buy it because they want to make sure that their family members and their kids their lives don't have to change in potentially what could be the worst times of their lives. All right, because a loved one may not be there. When it comes to the business side, the business that they've created, that they love so much, they put all their time and energy into. They want to make sure that that business is protected or that business partner is protected. So what I say to people, that really, are contemplating it, there's no cost to it. There's a cost to it, but, the true question is, what's the cost of not having life insurance? If you think about it, of course it's got a cost. All right. Most things in life that are valuable do have a cost, but what is the cost of not having anything or not having the right coverage? Because you don't think about it often, do you? It's like, okay, you were sold something, you were told by that advisor, more than likely, because this is how my industry works. It's a little behind the scenes aspect, to put it in a drawer, take the key, lock it, and throw that away because it comes out of your account once a month or once a year, and you don't look at it.
10 plus years.
You just don't look at it.
Yeah,
and a lot of
13 years. It's out of sight, out of mind.
And a lot of times in my industry, the even worse part is the agent that sold it to you is no longer even in the industry.
Right.
They tell you to do that. They want your friends and family at first, and then when you can't come up with your own natural leads anymore, you're gone. So. And my mentor uses this analogy all the time. He's like, if you were growing up in the 80s, right, and your financial advisor told you to get, buy some stocks, and those stocks are Kodak and, blah, blah, blah. And the new hottest stock out there is Blockbuster, right? And you were to put that in the drawer, lock it, and throw the key away. You'd open it up today, and you'd be like, what the did I just do?
Right, yeah.
Right? That's what they did with life insurance as well. All right. Except for the fact that, life insurance was never looked at. Your financial advisor is constantly on you.
Right.
Not saying this is every agent, because there are agents that are good and they do reviews. But typically, if they're doing reviews, they're telling you to buy more of the same thing from the same carrier, right? So they're not really helping you much. They're just trying to sell more. Whereas if you got that true review, true appraisal, we can compare it and make sure that it's the right thing. If that term insurance, which term means it's running, there's an end date. If that term is going to run out, who's to say we shouldn't just re-up that term and get you a new 20 or a new 30 year? Right? And it's probably not even going to change the premium that much because term insurance is really low. A fun fact for people that have term insurance, 99% of term insurance never pays out. Never pays out because people are living so long these days. And, our medical world is just thriving. But, people are living way longer than the normal life expectancy than back in the day.
Sure.
99% of term insurance won't pay out. So that's why the permanent conversation comes into play periodically. It's like you got a lot of people out there who say, I'm just going to buy term, invest the difference, right? Well, guess what? Life insurance has these tax advantages that investments don't have. Because you're using pre-tax dollars going in, everything on the way out is tax-free. Even the accumulation, because I have people buying it every day who want to have a secondary income stream. Another bucket to add on to all their qualified retirement stuff that they can access by taking loans from their policy. And those loans, even above the amount you've put in the world you guys are used to, which is capital gains, okay, you don't have capital gains when it comes to life insurance because you're using it against your own death benefit and your own policy. So it has a lot of advantages, but like I always say, just get educated, talk to a guy like me, talk to somebody who's independent that does it. And, at least you're getting complete transparency when it comes to what you're doing for your family or your business.
Well, about talking to a guy like you, we got to wrap this up. Yep. Why don't you plug your contact information so if anybody's interested, they can reach out. So
you got it. Yeah,
phone,
you got it. I'm right downtown next to the Statler, 135 Delaware. You can hit me up. I don't even, who doesn't have my cell phone number these days, right? Hit me up directly. I want to take care of you directly. If you're working with me, you're going to get me. So 716-903-6608 is my cell. You can hit me up for this, that, if you need a connection or a relationship for anything. I'm all about connecting, even if it has nothing to do with life insurance.
You got a guy.
I got a guy for just about everything, right? I am that dude. And then, my email is just ryan@stanginsurance.com. We do drinks at lunch. You guys want to come and hang out? Like, we keep things interesting.
We'll review your policy.
I got a bar in my office for a reason, right? Like, I am central downtown for a reason. I still have a good time while I talk about this shit.
I was going to say, nobody can say that you're not living life to the fullest, my man.
Damn right. Well, I appreciate you boys having me on. It's been fun.
Appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right. That's Ryan Stang. Thanks for the knowledge. And that is our episode of Let's Know Buffalo. Thank you.
Let's go.